Good evening. Good evening. Hey there. Ba, ba, ba. Bring me a higher love. Hey, am I okay? Let's see if I can pronounce this correctly. Is it pronounced Mateus? Did I get that right? Let me know in the comments if I got it right. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. Welcome. Jessa Carter, the Peaceful Billionaire here. Hey, Stephanie. Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. All right, so I am excited this evening because I just got off of the group call. One of my groups is the Peaceful Millionaire Collective, kind of evolving into the Peaceful Billionaire Collective as the branding has been being shifted over, and I have the most amazing clients, and we had an awesome call tonight. We're having a lot of fun, and we were just chatting for a few minutes at the end. And oh, thank you, Steph. Thank you so much. So she reminded me of something, and I'm gonna share this one this evening, and I cannot take credit for it. Like this really cool thing actually came from one of my clients. And so my question for you is, are what are your walls made of? What are your walls made of? Hello, good evening, welcome, welcome. Moon Too Far, tell me your name in the comments. If I don't, I love to address people by name. So if I don't know your name, and I can't tell from your Insta handle what your name is, please, if you'd like to be addressed by name, please share your name with me in the comments. And Mateus, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. If I didn't, please let me know. And so what are your walls made of? What are your walls made of? And I love this question, and the answer is going to surprise you. And I remember my walls. Oh, hey Pat. Oh my goodness. I would have had no idea that was you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I remember, so when I think about my walls, for the longest time, my biggest walls were the walls that I had built up around my heart. I did not have the I don't believe in luck. So let's see, I can't say I didn't have the best of luck. Let's just say that the early part of my journey, when it came to men, was not the best, and that's not knocking men in any way, shape, or form. Much of that was due to me. As I started to grow and evolve, I understood that many of the things that I was experiencing that were maybe less than ideal were actually that I was really responsible for those things. And part of how I was unknowingly responsible for those things was the walls I had put up around my heart. And the best way that I can describe the walls that I used to keep up around my heart prior to my personal, professional, and spiritual development journey would have put Fort Knox to shame. So those walls would have put Fort Knox to shame. And so I want you to think about your walls, and because your walls might feel that strong, right? They might feel as mighty as the walls of, and protective as the walls of Fort Knox. So where are those barriers or walls that you're experience the most in your life? And is that in regards to a relationship with another person? Is that in regards to your relationship with money? Is that in regards, are those walls up into, maybe it's a next level of success, maybe it's some sort of new venture, whether that's a business venture or an investment venture that you're interested in? where are you seeing or feeling those walls that you've put up the most, and and how strong and powerful do they seem or do they feel, right? Because what happens with the walls is in the moment, right? In the moment, those walls feel very real and true for you, and they feel really high, right? And they feel really thick, and they feel really strong, and so it can feel challenging to move beyond, right? To move beyond those walls. And so one of the things that my client shared with me, and it literally it's funny because it's the opposite of this. It, like the aha, right? The aha from what she said hit me like a ton of bricks. But what she said is, she was like, it took me a long time to figure out that the walls were made of paper. All along the walls were made of paper, and I was just like, the walls were made of paper, right? So the walls, like that are so challenging to climb, to break through, to make our way over, like, wait a minute, they were made of paper all along. And so the moral or the lesson behind that is oftentimes, right? Oftentimes it's very easy that you are the one superimposing a lot of how hard that seems or feels on yourself. Now, I'm not pointing fingers to you in particularly, right? The same is true for me, right? The same is absolutely true for me. It's like, oh, but then when you have that little realization of like, well, wait a minute, like, I mean, is it the wall of China, and is it really made of bricks, or is this wall really made of paper? And could I perhaps bust through this wall and knock it down much more easily than I am currently perceiving or imagining? And so that is oftentimes what it actually is this wall made of paper, but it feels like it's made of cement, right? It feels like it's made of bricks. It feels like it's made of cement. It feels like it's made of steel. And it feels very challenging to either climb over and get past or to move through it. So just a little, just a little idea, right? Or a reminder that instead of seeing that wall as being made of brick or cement or steel, just remember, like, well, wait a minute, is it really, or is it just a wall made of paper? And can I actually move beyond this much more easily than I might currently be imagining or be able to see? And one of the other ones, so these were just some good ones. She reminded me of all of these really good nuggets tonight, and I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna spread the love. I'm gonna share these with with the rest of my audience this evening. And the other one is, like, as you continue on this journey. So we were talking about levels as being like levels in a video game, right? So these are your own levels. These are not levels in which you are competing with anyone else or against anyone else, right? So this is not a competition. These are like as you are reaching new levels within yourself. So if you imagine a video game, right? And we were talking about, like, so if you imagine the video game, like when you get to a new level, like sometimes those new levels, they seem really hard, but at the same time, if you pay attention to what's familiar, right? And that you have all of these tools, right? You have all of these tools and these gadgets and this wisdom and these just strategies and different tools in your tool belt that you've picked up along the way that you can use for that next level that might seem more challenging. And the other thing that she said is, so she said at this level, the skeletons are already in the front yard, right? So you hear about people, people are always talking about, oh, this, like the skeletons in the closet, right? Like nobody wants to talk about the skeletons in the closet, but you reach a certain level on your own journey where you're like, well, you know what? Like the skeletons are out, right? The skeletons are out of the closet. They are in the front yard. We've already been we've already been addressing the skeletons. We've already been hanging out with them, and we've already been dealing with the skeletons. So, there's no reason to keep them in the closet anymore. We're just gonna leave the skeletons out in the front yard. It's cool. So I thought that was I like that one. I thought, like, it's so true. It's so true. There are things, maybe to kind of anchor this in for me. I remember parts of my childhood, or parts of my story, parts of my journey that I could have never imagined sharing with anyone. And that was because I was embarrassed. I was afraid that I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I thought other people would judge me. I thought other people wouldn't like me, if anyone knew. And there are certain things that I divulge to, that I divulge to my clients. Once you're kind of in my circle and I know you a little bit better, there are a few more things that I share that I don't 100 completely share up to open, but most of it I share. One of those things, for example, was I had childhood seizures. And that was something that growing up I always hid. I always hid that. I could have never imagined sharing that with anyone. And there's a Steve Jobs saying, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. So it wasn't until I was on this journey of consistent learning and growing and evolving and improving myself in all aspects of myself, in all aspects of my life, that I came to realize that those childhood seizures that I was so embarrassed about was actually what sparked my fascination with the mind, which is what ended up leading to me choosing neurosurgery over any other subspecialty in medicine. And then when I ended up in this space of starting a business and being the Peaceful Billionaire and being a mind and money surgeon, and teaching mind and money mastery, everything ultimately like related back to the mind. And then it ties into money, because early on my journey, when I first started on this journey, what I was seeking, what I was consciously aware of, what my logical thinking brain was aware that I wanted, right? What I was seeking, what I wanted, was greater wealth and greater success. Now, what I ended up receiving on this journey was far, 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 far greater than that. But because that's where my journey started, and I had to do so much work on my own to succeed financially, and so much of succeeding financially is succeeding here as well. And so everything that I do is so strategic and intentional. And within my courses and my programs, I support people in creating that shift simultaneously, right? So you're creating the shifts that are required in your mind, but you're also creating those shifts that are tangible, right? You're implementing things into your life that are actively creating that change in your financial reality as well. So both of those things are very important. But it was, I mean, again, this was something that, so the skeleton's in the front yard now, right? So you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots. You cannot connect. Wow. If I slow down, Jessa, and speak, articulate your words, you can do it. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards. And so it was really, there was a point on my journey where I was just like, oh, I get it. I get it now. It all makes sense, right? It all makes sense. And as things continue to unfold, things continue to make sense. And in regards to the walls sometimes being made of paper, right? It's so easy to overcomplicate things when things might seem very challenging or hard or complicated, and it's very easy to do that when in fact sometimes it's really, really simple. This is a silly example of it, but this is how these things can happen. where I was at the grocery store over the weekend, and I was looking for arugula, and I asked one of the girls, I said, "Hey, do you all have any arugula?" And she was like, "No, I'm sorry, we must be out. It tends to go really quickly." And I was like, "Oh, okay, no worries." And then out of nowhere, another guy, like, he comes up and he was like, "Hey, did you just ask for arugula?" And he's like got this whole stack of boxes. He's like, "I have some right here." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, thank you so much. So asking, you shall receive, right? But at the same time, I was like, you know, oftentimes it really is that easy. So one of the other things, one of my other favorite things, to teach is never fear the ask. Never fear the ask, whatever that is, right? Never fear the ask, because if you ask, you never know, right? If you don't ask, the answer is always no. And if you do ask, oftentimes the answer is yes, right? So don't fear the ask, and ask and ye shall receive. So it's pretty cool. So it's like sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh, it really is that easy. If I ask, pretty good chance I'm probably going to get what I was asking for. So on that note, please be sure that you're asking for things that you actually desire to have and that you choose to have, versus asking for things you don't want, because the reverse happens too. If you ask for things you don't want, you'll get that as well. Um, and the other one that's fun, that came up this evening, that kind of ties into these other ones, especially the walls, right? Those walls made of paper, and sometimes how simple it can really be, right? Sometimes an ask can feel really big. It can feel really scary. It can feel really hard. And then you do it and you're like, wow, that was actually so easy. And that wall that seemed so hard and so scary was really just made of paper, and it was really quite simple. So the other one is, once you move a few small mountains, you'll be surprised how fast the big ones move out of your way. Once you move a few small mountains, you'll be surprised how fast the big ones move out of the way. And so that's part of the teaching that comes along with that, is oftentimes the perception is getting to a place in life where there are no perceived challenges, where there are no perceived obstacles, where there are no perceived walls, right? And so you think you want a life that is completely void of those things. When in fact that is not actually the goal, right? The goal is that when you become really good at overcoming these small perceived challenges, right, then what happens is you're automatically prepared to overcome some medium-sized perceived challenges with much more ease and grace, right? And so that means that once the bigger challenges do come, right, so you'll be surprised how fast they move out of the way, because you've prepared, right? You've prepared. And what I love about, whether you perceive it as a mountain or a roadblock or a challenge, right, or an obstacle, whatever that thing is, right, what's on the other side of the perceived challenge, the perceived obstacle, is really an opportunity. So if you're one of my shifts, and I've talked about this on a live before, but one of my shifts is shifting your perspective of obstacle equals obstacle and shift your perspective to obstacle equals opportunity. Because whether it's obstacle equals obstacle, or obstacle equals challenge, right, or challenge equals challenge, or roadblock equals roadblock, or mountain equals mountain, right? If you shift the other side of that equation to obstacle equals opportunity, challenge equals opportunity, mountain equals opportunity, roadblock equals opportunity, what happens is now your mind, your subconscious mind, will actually step in and start to search for the opportunity. But if your perspective is obstacle equals obstacle, your subconscious mind throws up a giant red stop sign and it acts accordingly. It will actually, in fact, stop, right? So in your brain, you're like, okay, there's an obstacle. It's an obstacle. It's always going to be an obstacle. It is what it is, right? And so it's going to stay that way if that's your perception. Whereas if your perception is, okay, like, this perceived obstacle is actually an opportunity, Where is my opportunity? Now your subconscious mind will step in and help you find the opportunity. And you may not receive the opportunity right away, meaning it might not show up right that moment. It might not show up the next hour or even the next day. But as long as you're open to where is my opportunity, you will find it. It will, in fact, show up. And they tend to show up quicker and quicker. The more you practice that principle. But sometimes you just might not see it until a little bit further down the road. It will reveal itself. And then what's even more cool, right? So when you shift from obstacle equals obstacle to obstacle equals opportunity, right? And once you find the opportunity, and you claim or you seize that opportunity, what's on the other side of the opportunity is a reward. So what that means is that small mountain, small challenge, other side is a small opportunity, right? Small opportunity. Other side of that is a small reward, right? Medium-sized challenge, medium-sized mountain has a medium-sized opportunity. On the other side of the medium-sized opportunity is a medium-sized reward. And then as you start to get into those bigger challenges, right? Those bigger perceived challenges, those bigger perceived obstacles, what's on the other side of that is an even bigger opportunity. And what's on the other side of that is a bigger reward. So that is why you think you want a challenge or obstacle-free life, but in fact, you don't. So that is, I think, a beautiful place to stop for this evening. There was a lot of pearls, a lot of wisdom in there this evening. If you missed it, if you ever want to rewatch any of my lives, you can always find them on my YouTube channel at The Peaceful Billionaire. You can also on YouTube catch my vlog, which is the Mission to Billions vlog. And it is my mission to support 1 billion people in having peace of mind and becoming financially free, so that they have the opportunity to live this life on their terms with their heart and soul on fire and contribute in a way that is unique to you. And everyone, I do believe, has a way to contribute that is unique to them. People's hearts, when it comes to contribution, tend to be based on challenges and things that they've experienced that they don't want others to experience. Causes, whether that's a cause that you want to contribute to, or potentially creating your own foundation. It is one of my dreams and my vision to start my own foundation. I've had the vision for what I want to create and be able to support based on those things that have happened in my life. But until I have the time and the capacity, because I'm still building and creating other things, until I have the time and the capacity to create my own foundation to contribute to, and I still will contribute to other causes. But in the interim, right, each time I do one of my events, each month when I do an event, a percentage of the proceeds from my event goes to an organization. And so when my upcoming event towards the end of July, it's either going to be the last weekend in July or the first weekend of August. I'm still playing around with those dates and finalizing everything right now. I am going to be supporting a friend of mine who her nonprofit is called Unsilenced Voices, and it's for survivors and thrivers of any form of domestic violence. And just a reminder that domestic violence comes in many forms, right? That is not just men abusing women. That can be women abusing women, men abusing men, women abusing men, right? So that is not exclusive to any one direction when it comes to domestic violence. And also that domestic violence includes mental abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, right? All of those are forms of abuse, and they do count. And that is something that I have not personally experienced, but I have had so many friends who are very, very near and dear to my heart that have unfortunately had to go through that experience. And Michelle is a really, really beautiful soul. So that's the reason. That's one of the reasons that I chose to, to support her organization as often as I can. I think my next one, I have another friend. Her name is Precious, and she has a foundation that brings education and other tools and things to healthcare and many other things to children in Uganda. And so that is something that I'll be bringing forth as well. And then I actually just had a meeting this week with a female leader who invited me to speak at a women's power conference, and also invited me to be a board member on the board for their organization. And one of the things that they have is a scholarship. They do a scholarship program and for things. And so I was like, oh, that's wonderful. I said, so I'll be able to, once or twice a year, support and contribute via that way. So anyways, so that is all a huge part of why I do what I do is contribution. And for any of you who want to listen, like, where that came from, I was not, and this is no disrespect, right? I was not raised in a way that I really knew that donating and contribution was such a big thing, and when it plays into, wealth and prosperity, in regards to like the law of reciprocity, right? And the way money works and keeping money in flow. And so contribution is a really powerful thing. So when I was younger, I didn't have a full understanding of how beautiful or how powerful it was, or that it was so much of a thing. Now, from a financial perspective, it's also beneficial from a tax perspective, right? Now, that's not the reason to do it, but that is a perk of it that is available. And so, because those perks are available, then if you're aware of them, then you're able to utilize those types of perks as well. But I was at a Tony Robbins virtual event some years ago now, and I'll never forget it, because I had been on this wealth and success journey for some time. I'm someone who had this weird understanding as a child that I was supposed to be wealthy, even though that is not where I came from whatsoever. I came from very, very humble beginnings. And I never understood where that came from. I've also always had an affinity for the finer things of life. Also don't know where that came from, right? That's just a personal preference. And whatever your personal preferences are, right, I honor and respect that. So I only ask in exchange that you honor and respect what my personal preferences are, and mine are for the finer things in life. But I've always worked in order to have those things, right? None of those things have ever been handed to me. And even though I have an incredibly supportive mother, right, I was not like one of those like born with silver spoon in my mouth people. And not to knock those people either, because good for them. Good for them. But I remember at that Tony Robbins event, there were some of the leaders. So one of the things that Tony always does at his events is there's an opportunity to contribute to an organization. And at that particular event, it was Operation Underground Railroad, which is a nonprofit organization for child sex trafficking. And that was the organization that was being supported. And so anyone who was at the virtual event who donated, Tony would match that. Right. So if out of all of the people, and I think at this particular event of Tony's, there were like thousands of people on this virtual event, and people collectively, once everyone had donated over like a 24-hour period, people had donated collectively like $500,000, and Tony matched that, right? So it was like $1 million that was going to Operation Underground Railroad. And then the next day, a couple of the other speakers, one of them was Jamie Lee McKern, who is was the former CEO founder of IT Cosmetics, Dean Graziosi, who's another personal professional development guy, friends with Tony. They both got up on stage the next day, and hey there, welcome. They both got up on stage the next day and individually donated another $400,000 each. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I get it now. That's it. Like, that's it. That's really what that driver is. I'm like, I want to be able to contribute at that level. Like, I was just imagining it. I was like, imagine being able to donate $400,000. Just here you go, right? And so since that time, I actually wrote out a check. I wrote out a check to charity for $400,000, and I have it on my refrigerator. And I haven't quite hit that mark yet, right? I haven't quite hit that mark yet of donating a lump sum of that amount. But that is one of my dreams and goals and visions that I hold for myself, and a big part of why I do what I do is to be able to contribute in a much bigger way. And if that is something that resonates for you, and it doesn't matter what capacity you contribute in. It doesn't have to be a large financial contribution. Even donating your time, right? Having an opportunity to donate your time, whether that's to the Boys and Girls Club or to another thing. So donating your time, that's contribution. Small amounts of contribution, it all adds up and it all matters. There's one woman that started a movement of basically just collecting like spare change and pennies, and created an organization that that goes to, and even through pennies, they end up with tens of thousands of dollars that they donate to a particular cause. So it doesn't have to be a large dollar amount to have a huge, massive ripple effect. So it's not about that. But it was just something that it struck within myself that I was felt pulled forward to be able to do in a greater capacity. There's also some mission trips that I would love to be able to do over the next couple of years as well. But just with some of the things that I have friends now that do in other countries, and I would love the opportunity to tag along and support what they're working on. But anyway, so that's contribution. That's some of my thoughts on contribution in a bit of a nutshell. So anyway, I will see you all tomorrow evening. And then I do go live every day, Monday through Thursday, not at any particular set time. It usually tends to be in the evening, roughly around this time. But on Fridays, I do go live every Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. If you did hop on towards the end and you missed it, I apologize. You can catch the beginning. You can catch the replay either here on Instagram or on my YouTube channel at The Peaceful Billionaire. You can also catch any of the other former lives replays there, and also the Mission to Billions blog. And what I share on the vlog is it's a daily entry. even on the weekends. And that is my behind the scenes journey of what is required, but full transparency of what is required both internally and externally to achieve some of the unprecedented levels of wealth and success that I have set out to achieve for myself, those personal goals. And as much, as much work as I've done, and as far as I've come, and as far along as I feel like on my journey, I'm still constantly learning. I'm still constantly growing. And there are still, moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what was I thinking? Like, can I do this? And then I'm like, well, yeah, of course you can. Otherwise you wouldn't be here. But still sometimes, fear and doubt creeps in. And I think the evolution becomes how quickly are you able to, to shift when those types of thoughts or emotions, do show up and present themselves as, as a perceived roadblock or getting in the way. So I am not completely immune to them, although I have done a lot of work to certainly to minimize those things. But I am not completely immune to them, and so there are there are moments. I do have my moments, but anyway, so I've enjoyed being here with you this evening. I hope you've enjoyed being here as well. I shall see you all again tomorrow evening. I'll see you on Friday at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. And that is all. Bye for now. Bye, 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 bye for now. If I could hit the right button. Got to hit the right button.